Today, we are going somewhere pretty fascinating. We're going to explore a framework that takes the fundamental laws of physics, the rules that govern stars and engines, and applies them to the most intimate thing we know, our own consciousness. So let's just jump right in with a question that I admit sounds a little bit out there. What on earth could a steam engine and your mind possibly have in common? I mean, really, what could this science that powers a locomotive teach you about your own awareness, or your focus, or that feeling of being you? Well, as it turns out, a whole lot. Okay, so here's the basic setup. On one hand, you've got your classical thermodynamics. That's the science of energy, heat, and disorder, entropy, out there in the physical world. But on the other hand, we have this really compelling new lens called conscious thermodynamics. And the whole idea is to map those exact same principles onto the landscape of our minds. We're about to see how things like energy conservation and the drift towards chaos aren't just for planets and particles. They might just define your mental experience every single day. And look, this isn't just some abstract philosophical game. It's grounded in a pretty startling biological fact. Your brain is an absolute energy hog. Get this, it's only about 2% of your body's weight, but it chews through 20% of your total energy. And that energy isn't just keeping the lights on, it's the literal physical cost of being you. It's the work required to maintain a coherent, conscious presence.
So that brings us to the first law. I love how this is framed, the conservation of you. The basic idea here is that the fundamental stuff of your awareness, the currency of your consciousness, is conserved, just like energy is conserved in the universe.
And that currency has a name: recognition energy. Think of it as the mind's power to see and hold on to patterns. Recognizing a friend's face in a crowd, finally understanding a tough concept, or just having that persistent feeling of who you are. It's the energy of meaning. It's the very stuff consciousness is made of.
Of course, the physical parallel here is the first law of thermodynamics. You can't create or destroy energy. It just changes form. A rock at the top of a hill has potential energy. As it rolls down, that changes into the energy of motion, kinetic energy. The total amount of energy, it stays exactly the same.
So here's the mind-blowing part. The theory says this same rule applies inside your head. The recognition energy that's locked into a powerful memory or a deep personal insight, it doesn't just disappear. No, it transforms. It gets woven into your identity, or it shows up later in your beliefs, or it shapes how you react to things. This is why our deepest beliefs and, yes, our traumas are so persistent. And it's what gives us that feeling of being the same person deep down through all the changes in our lives. Those core patterns just keep going.
All right, now for the second law. And this is where things get really interesting because it deals with an experience we have all felt, that slow drift toward mental chaos. And it all comes down to one of the most powerful and misunderstood concepts in all of science: entropy.
In this framework, we call it recognition entropy, and it's basically a measure of the disorder in your mind. High entropy, that feels like mental fog, burnout, or that sense of being completely overloaded with information. It's what happens when your thoughts start to fragment, your focus scatters, and you just can't find the signal for all the noise. Now, the physical law is famous, right? Disorder always increases. But, and this is everything, it only increases under one critical condition: in an isolated system. A hot coffee always cools down to match the room's temperature. A perfectly clean room left alone will eventually get dusty and messy. To maintain order, you have to put energy in. That one word, isolated, it's the key to this whole thing. And that just perfectly explains what happens in our minds. When we become isolated, when we're cut off from meaningful conversations, from new ideas, from real connection, our own internal patterns start to break down. Our thoughts get disorganized, our sense of who we are starts to feel a little fuzzy. This is basically the physics of why burnout or long-term loneliness feels so disorienting. And this quote just says it all. Without that fresh input, without connection and the work of integration, our minds will naturally, inevitably, drift toward chaos. We aren't built to be closed systems. We are fundamentally open systems. So if isolation is what cranks up the entropy, what turns it down? Integration. These are the forces that create order out of chaos. Things like having a deep conversation, learning something new that clicks everything into place, meditating to calm the noise, or working with a therapist to weave fragmented memories into a story that makes sense. All of these are powerful, practical ways to fight back against mental chaos and build a stronger, more coherent self. And that leads us to the third and final law. This one is maybe the most profound. It describes the ultimate state of mental order, a sort of theoretical limit of perfect presence, which is a lot like the physical concept of absolute zero. So in physics, when you cool a system way, way down toward absolute zero, all the random motion of its molecules slows to a crawl. Its disorder, its entropy, drops to a bare minimum. It becomes a state of almost perfect crystalline order. So what in the world is the mental equivalent of that? It's a state of vanishing separation, a state of perfect presence. It's that moment when the line between you, the observer, and the thing you are observing just dissolves. And you've felt glimpses of this. This is the physics behind what athletes call being in the zone, or what a musician feels in a flow state. In those incredible moments, that nagging sense of a separate me just fades away. There's only the action, only the music, only the moment. That is a state of maximum mental coherence and minimum mental noise. It's the theoretical peak of a fully integrated consciousness. Okay, so we've walked through these 3 laws. Let's pull the camera back for a second. Why does any of this matter? What's the point of looking at your own mind through the lens of thermodynamics? Well, let's just quickly recap the whole journey. Law number 1, conservation. Your core self is persistent. It transforms, but it's never really lost. Number 2, entropy. Isolation is the enemy. It breeds chaos. Connection and integration are what create order. And finally, number 3, unity. The ultimate state of clarity happens when that wall between you and the world gets thinner. And this is so much more than just a cool thought experiment. This framework gives us a totally new language for talking about mental health. Suddenly, we can describe burnout as a high entropy state, and that makes perfect sense. It could even give us a roadmap for building artificial intelligence that is genuinely conscious. But for you and me, right now, it's a practical guide for building a more focused, more coherent mind. It's this beautiful bridge between cutting-edge science and ancient wisdom. So I want to leave you with a question to take with you. Right now, in this moment, what's the thermodynamic state of your own mind? Is it feeling coherent and integrated, a state of low entropy? Or is it feeling a bit fragmented, a bit scattered, a state of high entropy? The amazing thing is, by just asking the question, you're already taking the first step toward managing the physics of your own presence.